You're listening to The Pain Chaser 1, Ambuscade. This audiobook contains violence, torture, drug use, and scenes of a graphic and often disturbing sexual nature. It should go without saying that it is not intended for children. Now turn up the sound, turn down the lights, and find a comfortable place to hide. Because fear has a face, and I'm going to show it to you. Chapter 4. Tabitha Marsh pushed open the door to her daughter's high school and stood in the main hall. A feeling of déjà vu and awkward nostalgia flooded her as she looked around. Things had not changed much since she had come to the school as a child. She, however, was a completely different person. As a young girl, Tabitha had been awkward and chubby. Now, she had bleached blonde hair, fake tits, and 2 ex-husbands. The school represented part of her life that she would rather forget. A 16-year-old girl was now solely her responsibility, and the girl was a terror. Tabby glanced in at the wrestling and football trophies that they had displayed behind glass in the hall. She placed her palms against the pane to get a better view. The names had changed, but she suspected it might be the same glass. 20 years' worth of dust and grease caked its cloudy surface. She removed her hands from the glass, willing herself not to think about the germs that could be breeding there, and wiped them on her denim hip huggers. She walked awkwardly into the labyrinthine hallways, the patterns of which came back to her as if from a dream she'd forgotten until that moment. The colors of the lockers and hallways painted a picture of the past so strong that it was shocking. It caused her a moment of vertigo. The place even smelled the same. The stale odor of hundreds of children and disinfectant. Shaking off the feeling, she removed a hand-scrawled note from her jacket pocket, listing a room number and teacher's name. Mrs. Pearsall, room 194. She thought the name over. Had there been a Mrs. Pearsall in her day? She didn't think so. She headed off in the direction she believed the classroom was probably in. If she remembered correctly, the building was set up in a sort of lopsided pentagon, with the lower numbers on the left and the larger numbers on the right. Somewhere in the building she could hear a whip crack of a basketball hit a gym floor again and again, and the repeated false starts of a brass band somewhere practicing a fanfare that had been overused even in her time. She'd barely stepped into the apartment from work when the phone rang, and Mrs. Pearsall asked her to come in to speak about her daughter Vanessa's constant absences. She had no doubt that she knew exactly where Vanessa had actually been. Up at the mall with her boyfriend David, probably fucking in the back of a car somewhere. She came finally to the classroom. The lights were on, but no one was inside. Oh well, she'd tried. She was inwardly happy she wouldn't have to deal with the missing teacher. But as she turned, she found herself face to face with a short, stout woman with glasses and a nauseating pink sweater. She smiled pleasantly, artificially. "Mrs. Marsh?" she asked, extending her hand to shake. "Miss Marsh," Tabby said, taking the hand as if she were touching something unspeakable. "Well, Miss Marsh," she said, putting the same emphasis on Miss that Tabby had. "If you'd like to step into my classroom, we can get started." "All right," she said with an impatient sigh, "but this had better not take too long. I have an appointment I have to meet." She, of course, had no such thing. "Oh, I won't take up too much of your precious time, Miss Marsh. I wouldn't want to inconvenience you with something as trivial as your daughter's education," she said contemptuously. They'd already gotten off to a bad start. "Listen," Mrs. Pearsall said, sitting herself behind her desk and offering a smile as sweet as honey, still dripping from the nest of angry bees. "I'm not one of these teachers that try to blame every situation on the parents, or the child for that matter. It's my belief that in most cases, if a child fails in the classroom, it's because the teacher had failed in some way. Children inherently don't want to learn. Except for those few special cases they get off on proving themselves. They need to be enticed. I'm happy to say that I have a pretty good record with children in my classes. Your daughter, however, doesn't show up for class? How can I reach out to a child that's never here? Tabby shook her head. Kids these days do anything they want. Kids these days are no different than they were when you and I were children. The world has changed, I'll grant you that. But who am I to blame when Vanessa doesn't show up for class? I work, Tabby said. I can't be making sure that I know where she is every minute of the day. Miss Marsh, you're a parent. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. It's your responsibility as the girl's mother. Where is Vanessa's father? Mrs. Pearsall asked. That's none of your business, Tabby snapped. Then, stifling her anger, she added, Besides, I haven't seen him in years. What I meant by it, the teacher said, trying to apply some tact, is that I know it can be difficult for a single parent raising a child alone. It can be very difficult without help. Tabby nodded. Well, that's what I'm here to offer, the older woman said. She folded her hands in front of her. I really do care about these kids, and I want you to know that I can be here as a lifeline, or support if need be. We may have started on the wrong foot, but I'm here to help. I really am. Tabby looked at her questioningly. Now, if you'd like, I can help you put together a program, she went on. A set of exercises to help get Vanessa on the right path. This woman had some nerve. Was she trying to imply that Tabby was a bad mother? That she was incapable of taking care of her own child? Sure, Vanessa was going through a rough spot, but every girl her age did. Is there a time, the teacher asked, when we could get together and discuss this more thoroughly? Tabby felt her suppressed guilt biting at her, lighting the fire under her anger. How dare you? She hissed through clenched teeth. How dare you try to weasel your way into my personal business, as if I were incapable of taking care of my own child? Mrs. Pearsall sighed. Miss Marsh, I assure you that's not my intention. My concern is for Vanessa, but Tabby cut her off, unwilling to listen. You got 40 other kids in this classroom. Let me worry about my own daughter. Then the teacher's own anger flared. Well, it doesn't seem that you're doing a very good job of it at the moment. You can't talk to me like that, Tabby spit. I can speak any way I like, Mrs. Pearsall said matter-of-factly. I've got tenure at this school, and I know more about educating children than one single working mother. Now, I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, Miss Marsh, but as I said, my concern is for Vanessa. Vanessa, who you seem to be so worried about, is probably off fucking her 24-year-old boyfriend, Tabby yelled. Her inner thoughts turned candid by her rising anger. If the teacher was shocked, she didn't let it show in her face. True as that may be, Vanessa is still a child in our care, and children cannot be held accountable for the mistakes that they make, not entirely. It is our concern as teachers and parents to make sure that they get on the right path. I don't have to take this from you, Tabby said, standing up. Well, you better start taking it from someone, the older woman yelled at her. This isn't your life we're talking about. It damn well is my life, Tabby said. She's my daughter. It stopped being your life the moment you decided to have a daughter. It hadn't really been her choice at all, but Tabby bit back the remark. Instead, she said, "Fuck this," and stormed out of the classroom. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" the teacher called after her, but she'd already slammed the door. Tabby stood in the hallway with her back to the wall, chest heaving. Her face felt hot and flushed, and she could feel deep welts in the palms of her hands where her fingernails had dug in. The dominant emotion that flooded through her senses was not anger, but guilt. She swallowed it down. She steadied her breathing and tried to calm herself. The woman was a know-it-all bitch, she told herself. She didn't know what she was talking about. Vanessa was just going through a phase. She would grow out of it. Girls her age were always rebelling, always fucked up a little. If she got herself into any real trouble or ended up pregnant, well, then she would have to deal with it, like Tabitha herself had to. You can't hold the mother accountable for everything a girl did. Her guilt abated. After all, deep down, Vanessa was a good kid. She was just growing up, and fucking up was part of growing up, wasn't it?